It's an interesting title to this video, Legally Impaired. When we look at how people are basically in a lack of comprehension on what we've been trying to explain thoroughly in the videos, what's happening is if you're having a hard time digesting it or getting it into your, not only your mind, your temple, but your heart, where your conscience is, uh, to what you're basically doing and how you're going to correct the problem, it's because of legal impairment. Uh, we're going to read out of James 1, 7 and 8 that deals with this, because when we look at the birth registration, it's a permanent legal record, and a legal record can only affect what is legal. Given names are not legal, they're put in or implied to be in there. Okay, they're inserted because of lack of knowledge on the parent's part, because the parent is operating in the legal system, so therefore they would normally just place their child into the system thinking that they're doing the right thing, but they don't realize that they're preventing an elective choice of that child, because they're already directing them, they're tutoring them down a direction that's going to lead them right into the same pit that they've been in. And so they're going to be involved in induced labor contractions that are involved with them acting as a surety for the certificate that the government issues on it, which is understood. The government has to have a way to control things in a legal sense. So how do I bind you unless I bind you to take over a a suretyship over a sealed contract that the state has with their creditors? That's just how it works, and therefore it kind of represents almost like a common share. That is what you pay. So you're moving this around as a surety, even though it's not really you. You're just acting in name. But that's how a legal fictitious system operates. It has to operate in that manner. Um, there's no way you're going to operate something that's unnatural without using an unnatural system. You weren't born with a certificate. This wasn't tattooed on you. And therefore, you have to realize that you've entered into a sandbox of fiction, into a membership that you were warned through the spiritual side, through the Bible, to not be involved in. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Unbelievers were Gentiles, so therefore everybody that operates in an unbeliever society would have a Gentile name. It's pretty simple. Samuel Johnson's dictionary defines the fact that a surname is a gentilitious name, one of an uncovenanted nation, one who knows not the true God. So when you're acting in legal impaired position, of course, you've entered into a compound name. They've merged together. Now you're in a prison that you've basically entered in by consent, even though you were induced into that concept, even though it's a misconception of birth. So James chapter 1, 7 and 8 is a good scripture. I'm reading out of the New American Standard that the Gideons were basically distributing at one time. And James chapter 1, 7 and 8 reads, "For let not that man expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." So what happens is you've walked into a double-minded position, one being legal with something that is spiritual. And therefore you're on both sides. You cannot serve God and mammon. So the legal side really can only, under a permanent legal record, only have one name on it, which would have been only what is their jurisdiction, which is the surname. Now this is why this document is so confusing for a lot of people, but it's also a problem even within how the state looks at it, because the state will state right off the beginning, because a minor can't enter into a contract to be under duties, debts, and obligations, and so therefore their legal conclusion has no basis of where the duty arises from, because a child could never have entered into legal duty. So the seal, of course, is outside the frame, because we have an accusatory law system. You're just being accused. You were innocent without cause. You had no money coming in and you have no money going out. This is just a fictitious realm of confusion operated by a group called the Devil's Advocate. And bottom-feeding parasites are everywhere. They're on every street. Because of the very fact is that they know in the background in their mind that they are not doing something good. They live off the misery of the people, and they profit from it, and they make gain from it. And so they work in the mammon side, which is the side that is for people that are not spiritual. What an oxymoron it is to have a Christian Lawyers Association. How ridiculous is that? That's like having a God-fearing devil who actually is going to operate in harmony with God. No, this is basically a system that unfortunately we've fallen prey to, and we have to wake up to that. Possibly we're impaired. We have a pair name. We're not at one. That's what we put at one. So even in the legal system, there's only one name that is legally responsible for anything. And of course, it has a seal, but when they issue the certificates that are based on the doctor only having one name on the child, the surname of the parent, Form 1, they only have one, they Form 1, and then by the time they try to Form 2 under Form 2, then basically the only thing they can do is issue an ambiguous certificate because they're crossing the line between what was private, did not belong to the state, could not be entered in there, and therefore they run these ambiguous certificates and eventually get you to act as a surety for the version of this ambiguous title. So it takes time to absorb what's going on, but both sides have what is only one. Okay, so even the legal side only has an at one name, which is the surname, and that's why the spiritual side is atoned for. The debt was paid, but we're not supposed to be enjoined into legal debt, and that's why there's a seal on this document, and it has the responsibility of those signing authorities on there. So this is the sealed contract. This one is not sealed, but they're still the ones that sign. So we've gone through many videos to try to explain this. I hope we're getting through and getting past the legal impairment, but people are walking in to many situations where I believe, whether it's a court situation or whether it's battles with banks, they're not realizing that they signed. So there's no evidence of what they gave to the debtor situation that they're involved in that does not place their privacy in camera, the picture, along with their consent, with their signature also. And then they're trying to say, well, I'm not on the debt. It's not my name. It's based on, misspelling or improper letter arrangements in the Roman alphabet. That's not going to hold. You need to read Bouvier's Law, 1856, just dealing with name. You should be reading definition of how a name works, even in the legal sense, because you will have a better comprehension of how the legal side is operating its sandbox. What's happening is people are diving into the middle, and they're listening to these unbelievable, but yet people are believing them, legal gurus who haven't even really studied the law. They've just jumped into the middle of a law book and pull things out here and there, but they can't really explain what's going on. Those are the ones that send me nasty messages in the emails because they're impaired. They cannot get their head out of basically the ignorance that they're experiencing because they're basically being confused, and they're in lack of knowledge. So we really want to understand this thoroughly, but this is a really good scripture to look at to give us an understanding of why God will not come to your rescue when you're playing in a duplistic situation. You can't be double-minded, and that's really what this is. You can't be spiritual and legal at the same time.